This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 8th year of talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody, this is Alex, this is the Ramble, and we go until midnight tonight. We have something a little special tonight. That's why we started without all the promos and everything like that and just decided to start the show right here and now. It's an hour-long interview, and the reason I didn't run the promos at the beginning is so that we can have enough time for everybody at, say, 11:30 Eastern to be able to join in and discuss stuff and so on and so forth. But I think you're going to enjoy this interview, so let's get it going right now. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the, I guess we call you, do we call you just governor or former governor of the state of New York?
I'll answer to both.
Oh, okay. So, Governor, how are you today?
I'm great, Alex, and it's great to be on your show. This is fantastic.
Yeah. David Paterson was the governor of New York, but only for a 3-year term, right? Was that
yes.
About it? You took over for Elliot Spitzer, who kind of had to quit. Okay.
The certain way that I always put it is, it's the best benefit I ever got
from the job.
I wasn't even there.
Yeah. Did you consider it a benefit? I mean, did you really want to be governor?
I don't think I was planning on being governor. I always saw myself as more of an advocate than the establishment figure.
Yeah.
But what I was hoping was that at a certain point I would get a chance to be United States Senator from New York.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, the United States Senator from New York, or one of the two of them, was Hillary Clinton, and she was going to run for president in 2008. So we're in 2006 now.
Yeah. And
we're talking to Governor Spitzer, and Governor Spitzer had to sort of negotiate with me because I was the head of one of the houses in the legislature.
Right.
I was the minority leader of the Senate, and I was about to become the majority leader. So, that is the second most powerful position in Albany.
Mm-hmm.
But the lieutenant governor is second in command in case the governor has to leave or, resigns or passes away. And so what I said to Governor Spitzer is, I think that Hillary Clinton has a very good chance to become president. And he agreed. And I said, well, then what all I ask of you is that when she leaves, if you would put me in her place, then, then I could do this. I could be your lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
And his words to me were prophetic. Stay out of trouble and you've got it. If I'd known what was going to happen in the future, I would have said, physician, heal thyself.
He didn't say who had to stay out of
exactly.
trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
So you didn't get the job you wanted because by the time you had a senator had to be appointed, there was a few problems with Elliot Spitzer, and you had become governor. So now you could not appoint yourself senator. So therefore,
I actually could.
You could?
And you know something? I wanted to, but I'll probably never get any credit for this. Maybe somebody will, write a couple of sentences and something about it one day.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't, because everyone was telling me Albany is a mess. The state is $21 billion in deficit. It's never been higher than $9 billion in deficit.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get blamed for everything. Here's your chance. Get out.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't do it is that in the Senate, the Senate majority leader was now next in line to the gubernatorial position under the lieutenant governor. So it was governor, lieutenant governor, and majority leader of the Senate.
Right.
At that particular time, the Democrats had a 1-vote majority in the Senate, and there were 4 people who I practically had to pay off to get them not to vote for the Republican when at that time. So I knew that if I left, there would be a struggle over who took my place, and that struggle would probably bring out the worst in everybody.
Right.
And so I thought, most responsibly, I already knew what the budget was. I already had a plan to close it. So I just kind of eschewed the opportunity to take the Senate seat and moved on.
And you appointed Kirsten Gillibrand.
Kirsten Gillibrand.
Yeah.
Now in retrospect,
Yes.
if I'd known all the things that were going to happen to me after I decided to stay, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
And if I knew that, I may have actually gone to the U.S. Senate. I might have done that.
Yeah. How do you feel about how she has served out as senator?
Oh, I think she's the one that really brought the issue of sexual harassment in the military, out of the military into your living room if you're watching the news. She's done a lot of, dynamic things. I didn't think she did anything close to where she could run for president and win. I don't really know what she was thinking about when she did that.
Well, here's the thing that bothered me was the whole Al Franken thing.
Yes, exactly. And Alex, I wasn't going to say it, but now that you brought it up.
Go ahead, say it.
When I was under investigation, she did the same thing to me. I mean, talking about biting the hand that feeds you.
Really?
And actually, I was on New York 1 when she started to run for president, and I called her out about it. I said, all the investigations were really just to get me not to run for re-election. That's what that was about.
Well, what were they investigating with you?
They were investigating the fact that I went to the World Series and didn't pay for the ticket. And I got a huge fine over that. And the legislature was so adamantly annoyed about how the Public Integrity Commission ruled on that they rewrote the rules about, attending events and when you have to pay and when you don't, to completely coincide with what my counsel had advised them at the time, is that if you're going to a jurisdiction where most of the people are people you represent, and of course at Yankee Stadium, it was New York, so I basically represented all of them, that you can do that. Yeah. So I kind of won in the end.
Well, what I'm reminded about the Al Franken thing, among other things, was she really went after someone who was maybe the best liberal in the Senate. I mean, the most consistent liberal.
She contributed to his destruction.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that what went on, that was just a joke photo that they took. And in fact, the woman that they took it with knew it was being taken.
Oh, that's the photo where she's sort of sleeping.
And then he's like grabbing her. Yeah. Yeah. But he's not even touching her. He's just going.
The thing was that she said, if these investigations come to anything, I think the governor needs to resign. And she was sort of implying that I should resign even before the investigations were over.
Yeah.
And I spoke to her about it after, when she was running for president, and I made that statement, that was a big problem for her and her campaign. So she came back to me and said that she didn't mean that I should have resigned. She thought that one of my staff members should have resigned. So
I just find her being duplicitous, and I find it very hard to vote for her.
Yeah, that was, sometimes where you jump on the bandwagon and something's happening. And, there was a woman who ran against a state senator back in 2018. And he'd been accused of a few things, but nothing had been proven. And she and I were having lunch, and I warned her about what had happened in some other situations like the one we just discussed. And she said, I'm not saying a thing about him until they find that he's done something.
Well, now she didn't have to run for the office. She was handed the office because she was filling out an office that was held by Hillary Clinton. In retrospect, I mean, do you feel that it was a good? Why did you make the move, and was it a good one?
Well, I knew that she was an upstate member of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
No one from upstate had served in the U.S. Senate for over 40 years.
Right.
I was a downstater from Harlem. I think they thought I would take, someone that I knew or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to show that there was inclusion in the whole state. And although her political stands were rather conservative, it was the only way a Democrat could win upstate. And she broadened those stances later on. In fact, she broadened them within a week, which didn't look good.
Yeah.
And so I and I had met her a few times. I thought her, sort of political views were in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to take a woman. And again, with Hillary Clinton, there were only 17 women in the United States Senate. Her leaving made it Senate back to 16. And there were a lot of women in New York who were very upset that Hillary Clinton didn't win the Democratic nomination in 2008. In fact, that they openly would say that the old boys network beat racism. That, in other words, whatever racism Barack Obama was facing, it may not have been as strong as the desire to vote for a man had with Barack Obama.
You wanted to be in the Senate, okay? Did you have aspirations to be president, or is that something that you really didn't want? I mean, who was it? Chris Cuomo, in an interview the other day, said the real reson why his father didn't run. Listen to my echo. Stop. I have my echo right here, my Alexa.
She's over there because she's over here doing the same thing.
Doing
sometimes.
the same thing to you. No, what I was going to say is that. Now, where was I? I don't remember. That's old age in me. I was going to ask.
We were on the issue of Chris Cuomo commenting.
Yeah, Chris Cuomo was talking about. He said the real reason why my father, Mario Cuomo, didn't run for president. He said there were all these things that we were a mob and things like that. Right. He said the reason he didn't do it is he told my mother and me at the dinner table, I'm not going to do it because I don't think I would make a good president.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He didn't think he would make a good president. Would you have presidential aspirations had you made it to the Senate?
So I remember I went to the Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado in 2008. Mm-hmm. It was late August.
Yeah.
And Barack Obama was nominated. And I went out to dinner with these people and they were saying, you are New York's governor, but New York's governor along with California and Florida and Texas and Illinois and Massachusetts, those are the big states. Those are the states where, and of course, I did mention Florida, I guess.
Yeah.
That people listen to what those governors say because those governors are always in the running to become a future president. And they said, so you should talk about national issues in addition to what you talk about generally. And I said to them, look, guys, I've been here 5 months. I've only started to understand, where the laundry room is and that kind of thing. And I don't have time to think about that. And they said, no, we think you could be a very good candidate for vice president 2012. I'm like, there's a guy named Barack Obama, he's running for president. They're like, oh, come on. Barack Obama is an act, and it's going to end in November.
Right.
It's a nice book. He wrote a nice book. He says something.
Yeah.
Everybody says he always says the right thing, but no one ever remembers what he said. And they said, but you, on the other hand, who are immersed in this, really could be that guy. And if the African American candidate didn't win for president, it wouldn't be hard to put an African American on the ticket as vice president.
Right.
In other words, we've broken the glass ceiling there.
Yeah.
So you should think about, working on this.
Well, that's a question that I always wanted to ask, and that is, I've always felt that governors make better presidents than senators, because governors are really running a country in microcosm. In other words, you have all the same things you have to do being governor that you would have to do as being president, only being president, you do them on a larger scale.
You see, Alex, it's very profound, because after the Revolutionary War and the overthrow of the king's rule in the United States, the political people did not want anything that looked like one person had too much power. And so throughout the 19th century, there were always these problems, because when you get elected, your first obligation is to your area, whether it's the city you're from, or the county you're from, or the village you're from. And that's been pretty much the way it's been, but they could never get anything done because everybody was for themselves. And finally, there was I think he was a cabinet member in the Woodrow Wilson administration, which was over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know his first name was John. I can't remember his last name, but he was writing a proposal for really what was a house cleaning of government in New York around this time, about 100 years ago. And he wrote, and I'll update it for current conversation, that one person should be up all night worrying about the state's problems, and that would be the governor.
Right.
He actually wrote one man, but we have a woman governor now, so he was not prophetic in that regard. But it was a great idea, because sometimes somebody just has to be the leader. Everything can't be by fiat. It's really why socialism has never worked, because when they try to employ it, everybody comes to the table with these great intentions, but one person, to get ahead of everyone else, then starts breaking all the rules of what socialism is supposed to be about in the first place.
Yeah.
So the concept of socialism has never bothered me. It's the practice of it that doesn't ever seem to work. So when we look at people who run for office, so I was a state senator. That was all I did. Then I was lieutenant governor. I was never really in charge. And the first couple of months of that, Alex, I struggled with that, because I was sort of waiting for someone to shake me one morning, and it was Spitzer, like, "Oh, I'm back now.
I've decided to take the job back.
You can get out of my bed and go back to doing whatever you lieutenant governors do." And then I realized that I was being taken advantage of. That, it's just like parents, when you're younger, you figure out what your parents don't know how to handle, and that's what you do, just to drive them crazy.
Right.
And there was a situation where the legislature was actually wanting to have the power not only to vote on the budget, but to write it with the governor. This is the craziest idea I ever heard of. And they had lost a court case over this issue, but now they were trying to force me into sharing the power. And when a budget is late, they pass these measures called extenders, where the government will continue to operate exactly how it has until you pass the budget.
Right.
So I found out that the extender did not require the legislature to agree with the governor. They have to vote the budget up or down.
Yeah.
So everything I wanted, I put into the extender, and the two legislative leaders, I thought they were going to get up and throw their chairs at me. And they said, and one of them, who'd been particularly snide toward me forever, said, "This is the most political, naked power grab I've ever seen in my life." And I said, "I could think of something that's worse." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "What I'm going to do tomorrow." And I just looked at him, and I think in that moment, the axis had shifted, and I now understood that sometimes you shouldn't go overboard with it, as many governors have done time and time again. But sometimes somebody has got to put a stop to all of the the activities that are delaying government rather than practicing it.
What is it about the governorship of New York? Now, we had Eliot Spitzer. He was chased out of office because of the hooker scandal, okay? And then we had Andrew Cuomo, who for some reason quit. I still can't figure out why, but, it was later found out that I don't think any of the charges against him were ever completed. And then there was you with Gillibrand trying to get you to resign. What is it about the New York governorship that is so fragile?
Well, I think they were individual cases. In Spitzer's case, he couldn't deny what had happened. He was caught in a sting, and he did the honorable thing. He got out. He actually waited 5 years and came back and ran for New York City Controller. And had he started to run a month or two before, I think he would have won. So in his case, you'd have to say he took the honorable way out.
Okay.
Now, in my case, the most of the accusations against me, who had lived 55 and a half years and not been accused of anything.
Right.
But I had been contacted through an intermediary. This is going to sound like an episode in The Godfather. And they said, listen, Governor Andrew Cuomo is going to run against you. He will beat you. The best way is take the way out now. And if you take the way out now, we'll help you as you transition back into, just away from public life. And I told them what they could do with themselves. And within 3 weeks of my response, it seemed like every little thing that I ever did wound up in the newspapers, very carefully orchestrated and
wow,
and very antagonistic and very painful to be on the other end.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you say when you became governor, because it was under very dicey circumstances, that you would not run for a term, another term? In other words, you would fill out Spitzer's term and then you would not.
I only
run?
said it then.
Oh.
I only said it that the investigations were of a manner that I would have had to spend most of my time defending myself, and I didn't think a person could run the state and have those issues at the same time. So I didn't resign. I just said I wouldn't run for re-election. Now, what's interesting about this...
But you didn't wind up running against Cuomo, did you?
No. The interesting thing is the person investigating me was Cuomo himself. So he was a candidate and a prosecutor.
He was the Attorney General of the state at the time, right?
He was the Attorney General of the state. And he defended this when I pointed out to the media that how do you investigate someone and run against them at the same time? His poll numbers dropped 15 points in that 2-week period. And to save himself, he withdrew and named the former chief judge of the Court of Appeals, Judith Kaye, to run the investigation. But it was all of Cuomo's deputized attorney generals who were in it. So they just switched it around to make it look like he wasn't running it, but he was. And what I thought was so funny is that when he got investigated by the Attorney General, Tish James, who wanted to run for governor, he said, how can someone who wants to run for governor be investigating me at the same time? Gee, I wonder where he got that thought from.
Yeah. Let me ask you, the lieutenant governorship, I was led to believe the lieutenant governorship runs independently by himself, by herself, for lieutenant governor, independent of the party or the candidate that's running for governor, that you could have a Republican lieutenant governor in the state of New York and a Democratic governor. Is that right?
No, You could.
Oh, you couldn't.
What
Okay.
happens is in the primaries, in the party primaries,
Mm-hmm.
the governor and lieutenant governor are not affixed.
I
They're
see.
not together.
Okay.
Then the two winners, the person who wins for governor and the person who runs for lieutenant governor, run together.
Okay. All right.
This was changed back around 50 years ago. So far, it hasn't happened where a lieutenant governor, say, that a gubernatorial candidate wants to run with, lost the primary. It looked like it was going to happen this year, but Governor Hochul got her lieutenant governor out.
Mm-hmm.
She and the federal government who indicted him,
Mm-hmm.
and she found another candidate, and in 1 month he was actually able to win that election, which was an amazing event. But so the Republicans would have two Republicans running, a lieutenant governor and governor, and so would the Democrats.
Wow.
So that you would never have that situation. What was interesting, though, Alex, is that when we had the huge budget crisis, and I realized that the Democrats were not going to be supportive because of all of the programs that we were going to have to cut to keep the state from going into insolvency.
Mm-hmm.
And the Republicans, their way of hanging on to their pork was to say that I was overestimating the revenues. So they had an unholy alliance where they were both trying to stop me from doing things. And around that time, I went to the former assemblyman who was the Republican candidate against Spitzer, but I always thought was a real good government person. And he was a Republican, and asked him if he would like to come in and be my chief of staff. That way, we now had a Republican and a Democrat pointing out that the measures we were taking were right.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he declined, because he said he was fascinated by the offer, he wanted to do it, but the reason he declined was, you know, it is, Alex, people get out of politics and they get the private sector and they start to make some money, and then they wonder why they were ever in the public sector.
Let me ask you a couple of things about the way politics are going today. Do you think Cuomo should have resigned? I mean, I liked him only this much. I said he saved my life. That I'm an 82-year-old man right now. I was 80, I think, at the time. COVID was running rampant, and he got on television every night and he rallied the state and the people, if he did nothing else, into wearing masks and not going out and keeping their distance, and one thing after another. And
So I
he-
wrote
and
a
I
book.
feel in that respect he saved my life. And then when they said, okay, he patted some woman on the ass, I went, is that enough to get rid of a guy who's done this much for the state?
So, Alex, you've opened up all sorts of discussion opportunities. I'll start with I wrote my autobiography that I released in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote exactly what you said about the way he handled the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote that I thought he was the most effective administrator. In other words, he knew how to run things. He'd been Secretary of HUD at one point.
Yeah.
He was a manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
In other
and
words, you're
it's-
saying he had the skills.
yes, he's a terrific manager. And then what I didn't know was he became a pretty good therapist. All those days that we watched him on television. And at the time I was asked about it, and I said, who needs Dr. Phil? We have Governor Cuomo. He'll solve all your personal problems. And he was 10 times better than Giuliani after September 11th. I mean, they act like his comments were the greatest of all time. Andrew Cuomo really was the one who I think the country rallied around and was, very made a great impression of himself, and I thought was ticketed to run for president in 2024 because I thought Trump would get reelected during that time. I just thought he would.
Yeah.
Now, but then you come to the part I didn't write about, and it was who Andrew Cuomo is as a person.
Yeah, yeah.
He is ruthless,
Yep.
has no ethics or morals about doing anything to anybody else, and then gets so hurt and upset when someone does something to him. It's shocking to see it happen. And that's who he is. I remember when Spitzer named me as his lieutenant governor candidate, this upset Andrew because Andrew was trying to work out this deal where he was going to support a woman who was going to run for lieutenant governor, and one of the woman's friends would in turn endorse him. He thought he had this deal. They were never going to do this with him. And when I get named, he calls up a man named Darren Dopp, who was his press secretary, but at the time was working for Spitzer. And he said, "You've got to go tell Elliott they can't take Patterson. You can't trust him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not serious about the work. They can't take him." And so Dopp went to Spitzer. Spitzer was infuriated by the suggestion, called Cuomo up and told him, "Listen, we background checked him. All the legislators seem to like him. Everything is a go. And we don't know where you're getting your information from, but don't interfere in my nomination again."
But I want to ask you a question. You're telling me all these stories about, I mean, Cuomo, we all know, was very ruthless, but he was never ruthless against me. He was never ruthless against the people. He was ruthless within what he did. But I wonder, you come from a political family. Your father was a very well-respected legislator, Basil Patterson, if I know the name correctly. And you saw what went on in politics when you were growing up. It was all around you. Why you see what goes on and the games that are played, and these games have been going on forever. Why did you do it? Why didn't you just go and become a investment broker or something?
Well, it's interesting because, by the way, what I was going to say about Cuomo is when he found out he couldn't change Spitzer's mind, told him, "Please don't tell Patterson because I have to work with him." And Spitzer called me up and told me that he said that. And he called the next day to tell me that this was all a lie that Spitzer had made up. And he said, "You got to keep your eye on Spitzer. He's a tricky guy. Yeah. You can't trust him. He's erratic, untrustworthy." So he actually told both of us the same thing about the other. And I grew up in a political family, but I can honestly tell you, Alex, that 50 years ago, things were a lot different. I mean, there were games and people one-upmanship and people trying to get officers away from each other and, planting nasty articles about your opponents, that kind of thing. But there was a certain sense of decorum that you didn't want to have total fallouts, and that at a certain point, people would back off. And there were certain situations that I saw where people, they could have made a big deal about it, but they didn't because whatever the situation was.
It was different in those days. I mean, everybody knew. All the press knew. When I was first getting going in this business when Kennedy became president, the press knew about his affairs. They knew who the affairs were with.
Yes.
But they didn't report it. And the reason, and I asked somebody in the press, is why don't you report it? And he said, that's not proper. That's not the way things are done. In other words, in those days, we wouldn't have thought about ratting out Kennedy for that.
Right.
That was his private life.
So then what I would say is that in this particular case, the environment in the workplace was so toxic with the Cuomos. I mean, the Cuomo staff would call up and yell at anybody if they took a position that they didn't like. And
he was very intimidating, I understand.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And really, some of the I happen to know that there was a staff member of mine who he didn't like, couldn't stand it. this guy was very closely associated with the Kennedys.
Mm-hmm.
He went and researched and found out that the guy hadn't paid taxes for a while. And after September 11th, he lost a number of friends, and he kind of went into depression, and he didn't pay taxes, and he'd gotten himself together. It was 20 years later. It was 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And that story got put out about the person, and the person never got mad at Cuomo, because when the story got put out, he called him up and took him out to dinner like he was a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the friend who was on the other end of the knife that had been stuck in him. So it was, I think, the intensity of it that turned people off. But you asked me, why did I get into politics? That was kind of interesting, because I wasn't trying to get into politics.
In other words, it wasn't the family business, you don't think?
No.
Okay.
The only one who had gotten involved was my father,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very supportive of him.
Mm-hmm.
But
and he was very well liked and respected as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in 1985, I had told David Dinkins, who would become the first mayor,
Mm-hmm.
that I thought
The first
that my
black
father,
mayor.
right, the first black mayor,
It wasn't
right,
the first
yeah.
mayor.
And I said to him, I want to help, but I don't want to work directly for my father. So if you're running for something, I'll work for you. And I worked in his campaign for Manhattan Borough President. Now, at the time, my father changed his mind and did not run for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working for Dinkins, and one night they send me to this event up in West Harlem, and apparently this political club didn't like Dinkins, and apparently the feeling was mutual. So Dinkins refused to go, and his surrogate, the person who would take his place, when he had two events at the same time, he wouldn't go either because he didn't like the people. So they send me,
Right.
who was actually the fundraiser. I wasn't working on the issues, and they gave me these issues papers to read, and I go to this place, and I go in there at 7 o'clock in the evening, and as soon as I sit down, everything I say, as far as these people are concerned, is wrong.
Right.
If they asked me, what's the day after Tuesday? And I said, I believe it's Wednesday, they would say, and who made you think that? That's part of your problem. You don't know anything about us and our neighborhood. Oh, they just went on and on. And I'm sitting there trying to get through this interview. And finally, the man who was running the club,
Yeah.
who incidentally had been convicted of stealing cheese from an anti-poverty program. So in Harlem, his nickname was the Cheese Thief. The Cheese Thief stops the destruction of me,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, "Look, we have nothing against you, but the problem is that Dinkins is the one running. He didn't come here, and that's why we've acted this way." And I said, "Listen, that's your prerogative." And he said, "Well, thanks for coming." And this old lady who had beaten up on me 3 times in this meeting,
Yeah.
and she's sitting in the front row. So from the front row, I can actually see her. She puts her hand and says, "I have one more question." I'm like, "Oh no, not again." And she says, "First of all, young man, I'm not voting for your candidate because he didn't have the decency to come here and speak this evening." I said, "I understand, ma'am." And she said, "But I have a question for you." She said, "I really admire how you sat there for an hour and a half
And put up
and
with
answered our questions. And one look at your face would tell anyone that you felt like you were under a great deal of pressure, but you answered the questions. You didn't hit back. You didn't insult anyone." And she said, "That's the character that I would look for in an elected official. I'd like to see you run for something one day. And when you do, I'm going to help you." And she got up and clapped. And then the whole room clapped. And now, Alex, all I had to do was to fight back tears because I can't believe this is
Was that a light bulb moment? I mean,
a light bulb moment. It
Yeah.
changed my life because 3 months later,
Yeah.
the senator passed away. And when he passed away, 3 people that were in that room went to the guy who was most responsible for choosing the next candidate. And they said, "Take that kid. He probably has a lot to learn, but we see something in him, and we think he'd be
This
great
was for
our community."
state senator.
Yeah, it was for state senate.
Wow.
And,
Now let me ask you something. When we first talked on the phone a couple of weeks ago, because we hadn't talked for about a couple of years, you said, "Boy, times have changed. politics just isn't what it used to be, and you were saying things are really ugly. In your estimation, how ugly are things right now?
They've gotten to the point where I think that politics in the United States is the new religion. That people's fervor toward each other
Yeah.
is at a level as it would be as if we were going to have a national religion and we were all going to vote for which religion we think should be the one. The anger, the acrimony, I mean, and then the dishonesty. I mean, how could a man stand up in front of people after he lost an election by 7 million votes and 76 electoral votes and say it was stolen, and yet 40% of the population believes him and another 10% don't care because he stands for the issues they stand for? So as I see it now, there's no mutually agreed upon situation where a person does the right thing. So whatever you think of Richard Nixon, when he realized that they had him, he resigned.
My whole argument was, I said when Trump was president, well, I guess Bush doesn't look that bad to you. As a matter of fact, Reagan doesn't look that bad to you. As a matter of fact, Nixon doesn't look that bad to you. As a matter of fact, Hitler doesn't look that bad to you.
Well, it's interesting because when you find out that the day after the January 6th riot, that Trump had a speech where he was saying our movement to overturn the election does not involve violence, and he wouldn't say it. He crossed it out.
Yeah.
And the Secret Service people that testified at the hearing said that when they saw the people with the guns and they said, this is dangerous, he goes, but they're not here to shoot me, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to really think about the psychiatric nature of a mind that would allow somebody to say some of the things that
he's nuts.
Said.
He's nuts.
But the ignorance is only surpassed by the people who just gung-ho support him no matter what he does. When they started the vaccines, all these people gave him credit for it, said, it was his warp speed with the vaccines. And look, and I'm not saying that some of government operated on in some levels well under him, probably because he didn't bother them. But that's one example. And then on the other hand, you have people who are organizing into paramilitary groups because they think there's going to be a civil war. And the Democrats are not immune from this conduct either, because I regularly hear things that are stated, like Biden blaming inflation on Putin. Now that's new.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of things, but I can just hear him, at the,
I don't think he can even say that Putin's responsible for the gas prices, because most of our gas did not come from Russia.
Exactly. And it's listen, I think clean and renewable energy sources have got to be the future. I think they say if the Earth temperature rises by 2 degrees, it could be totally disruptive. And to give an example, during the Ice Age, the Earth temperature was 8 degrees less than it is now. So it just takes a slight movement to make huge changes.
Right.
And what I would suggest is that even the Democrats, any chance to distract people from what's going on to what Trump did is taken advantage of. So you get to the place where nobody really trusts anyone to make decisions based on how they would affect the population, but make them based on the next election cycle.
Let me ask you this. They just passed a bill in Washington, as you know, as you're aware of, with some new things like, regulating drug prices and things like that. And they're making a big deal out of it. And as I look at it, it looks like a big bunch of nothing really. I mean, when it comes to drugs being, the Medicare can negotiate drugs. There's just a limited amount of drugs they can negotiate on. Not all drugs, you know. So
I felt that way too. It was splitting hairs
yeah,
over I mean, the difference between doing this bill and not doing this bill didn't seem that big to me. The uh, uh, environmental measures looked actually pretty good,
hmm
but then the uh, they have restrictions on a lot of things that I think will be detrimental. And but they were able to pass the bill, and that's probably the most significant part about it, is that they actually were able to pass it.
yeah. But today, in order to pass a bill or to get anything done, you have to compromise. And we could say that compromise is a wonderful thing, but compromise sometimes brings you the most watered down answer to a problem you can come up with. You
And
know?
I think that's what we're going to get in the present case.
Yeah.
The
Do you think?
Democrats will laud it as game changing, and the Republicans will say it hurts business, and they might both be right. But the point is that we have a myriad of problems in this country right now, and whether to address them or not is now filtered through the scope of politics, I think, more than ever before.
Well, what is David Patterson doing now? You were running, you were helping run the Democratic Party in New York, weren't you? Are you still doing that?
No, I was running the Democratic Party in New York. Now I represent clients that have interest in government, and
Mm-hmm.
and I work for a company I really like. They do language translation services,
Yeah.
and this was always a problem in government. You could set up these places where people could come and you could help them,
Mm-hmm.
but they spoke different languages, and the number of languages that they're speaking in this country is multiplying like logarithmically. So I've kind of enjoyed trying to get the emergency rooms and hospitals to look at the fact that they can use an iPad
Yeah.
and get a translator who's not even there in 20 seconds. That's what technology provides us. And so when I, see these good ideas and I think they'll work, I, sign on and help them out.
Yeah. And the other thing that's happened in your life is you've gotten married again.
Yes. Um, I, I'm my third anniversary will be on Wednesday. So
Well, I haven't seen you since you got married, so congratulations.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What made you decide? How many? You've been married before, right?
I was married for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was just like going in different directions. So there wasn't any real,
Hey, after 20 years, you become two different people sometimes.
yes, made no real major falling out. And I wasn't really thinking about that happening again. Um, but I met a woman that I realized that I liked very much.
Mhm.
And then after meeting her, I saw her again, and I was having a conversation with her, and who comes into the event but my former wife? And she comes up and she says, "Hi, David." And I said, "Hi." And she says, "Hi, Mary." And they hugged each other. And I'm like, oh no, this is the last thing I need. I thought it was some girlfriend of hers or something, but it just turned out that they'd seen each other at a lot of events and they knew each other's name. So I could go on and pursue happiness
Well,
after.
you kind of married in a. Sometimes people are political opposites, and they get along. Was she your political opposite? Because can we say who she was married to at one time?
Yes, she was married to the guardian angel Curtis Sliwa.
Yes.
But she's kind of a free thinker and open-minded, and so the
Because you're a real liberal. You're
Yeah.
a real lefty.
I, I think I've what would you say it? I've mellowed a little bit in my old age,
well,
but
we all do.
but generally speaking, I've always seen myself as a progressive,
Hmm.
and but one of the things that I did learn really from this marriage, and uh, you know, some of the people I've met through it and that kind of thing is there are really some people in this country who have not had the opportunity to hear a story other than the way it was presented to them in grade school. And so, for instance, the issue of Michelle Obama, when Barack Obama won one of the major primaries, and she said, for the first time, I'm really happy to be an American. And she got harpooned for this time and time again. And this came up one night, early on when I was, with a group of people that were friends of my wife. And I explained to them, well, you have to understand that this woman's father was unemployed and he had a skill and he still couldn't work. And that made the mother, the family, the head of the family. And the mother had other ambitions, but she was doing it working in department stores and that kind of thing.
Right.
And this girl grew up watching people literally walk right off the streets and get jobs, and her father couldn't get a job. And then he wound up in very poor physical health, and they couldn't get the type of health care that they should have gotten at the time. And when I explained it that way, they were like, oh, so that's why she said that. I said, yeah, well, you have to understand sometimes behind every face, there's a story.
Right.
And maybe their person might say something that's really anathema to how you feel, but it would be interesting to try and wonder why she might say that. And I said, because I told my father the same time she was saying this, that there was no way, my father told me there was no way that I would be around. There was no way that he would be around to see a black president. And he said, and by the way, in case you're wondering, there's no way you'll be around either. And within 5 months of when he said that, Barack Obama was elected president. So what I would just say is, if I have actually felt good about something, it's that sometimes I've now met some people who actually will take the time to listen to why I feel certain ways about certain things and why other people I know feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's I didn't think,
as for me, I don't think I'm going to see a Jewish president in my lifetime. I mean, that's one we haven't had yet. But I don't know if we're going to see a woman as a president yet. I don't know if that's in the offing.
That would be actually very interesting to see what would happen if a woman ran for president. Now, I think that there are some, I thought it was interesting when Spitzer was governor. He was gunning to run for president, and he was middle of the road enough to possibly have won. But since that time, it'll be very interesting to see who runs and how parties deal with them. I'm waiting to see if, after the Republicans are always talking about all these things they do for black people, I want to see if they put a black candidate up for president or vice president. They've done the woman.
Well, they have to find a black Republican.
Yeah. It's not always the easiest thing to do.
And I don't know why a black person would be a Republican, because it's against his own best interests. I could never see that. Why people would vote against their own best interests. Let me ask you this, a couple of last questions, because I know that you have more to your life than talking with an out-of-work radio announcer. Do you think Biden's going to run for president again?
No. I think for the good of the party, and even at times for the good of the country, that he should leave it at these 4 years.
Okay, and so the question then becomes, who should run?
Interestingly enough, this comes up a lot when you discuss who's in and who might be in. The people who probably would win are people who are not well known to us at this time. Like there's no one who stands out.
Like Obama came out of nowhere.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
came out of nowhere, and they were thinking, who the Democrats are going to run Hillary? Well, if it's not Hillary, who would it be? And Joe Biden was trying to run for the
Could it
fifth
be
time.
because what you're saying is that kind of person doesn't have any baggage?
No, it's just that the way the media cycles work, it's all about the president.
Yeah.
It's all about the leaders of the other party that don't like the president and don't think he's doing a good job. It's hard these days with all the media and even with all the social media for a potentially good candidate to really become that well known. There's someone out there who I'm just not thinking of who it is, but you take someone like on the Republican side, like DeSantis. He has actually done well enough that I think there are a lot of Republicans who think, you know what, we could elect DeSantis, we can get all the conservatism out of him, and we don't have to hear him make all kinds of mistakes like Trump. I think he's someone that's put himself in that position.
Right.
On the Democratic side,
Gavin Newsom?
possibly. Also, there are a few women elected officials who are Democrats, congressional people, and a few senators. That would be an interesting race to, as I said, to see a woman run for president from either party.
My question, I guess, would be, when people are running for president, when I mentioned Gavin Newsom, he's a positive in what I'm about to say. Optics are very important these days. So he's a good-looking guy. He speaks well. He's got he checks all the boxes. So I mean, it has to be somebody either Newsom or Newsom-like, somebody like Obama, good-looking guy. Optics were terrific, and optics are important, are they not?
Oh, they always are. People who listened to the Nixon-Kennedy debate in 1960, by 1.5% thought Nixon won the debate.
Right.
People who watched the debate
Thought Kennedy
were
did.
with Kennedy. Kennedy had spent the weekend swimming. Nixon had spent the weekend studying, and Nixon had a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yes.
that the shadow that went round the country.
Yep.
And sometimes sometimes it really is all about optics.
Well, by the way, stick around for a second when we're finished here, so that I can talk to you just for a moment privately. But I really want to thank you for spending this time with us, because your person really knows politics. It's almost like you wake up and you have a bowl full of politics.
Yes.
And so I enjoy talking with you about it, because it opens my mind to a lot of things.
For the people who are watching this, I was 15 years old, living in Hempstead, Long Island.
Yeah.
And turned on my radio one night and heard this guy named Alex Bennett. And of course, I was in high school, so I listened to him all night. I'd stagger into school because I finally fell asleep at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I remember you going on to WBA.
No, I went to WMCA,
PLJ and
WPLJ,
other places that
PLJ.
PLJ, yeah. And then I at a certain point you were out of the market. But you were someone that I always wanted to meet, and there were these close calls. Apparently you got fired from some station in the area.
Yeah.
And some woman that worked for you was a friend of mine, and I guess when you were dismissed, she couldn't come out with us that evening or something like that. And And I said, "What was the name of the guy who got fired?" He said, "Alex Bennett." I said, "Call him back. I want to meet him." I said, "This is not the time to meet him." And then in 2013, when I was substituting for, of all people, Curtis Leva on The Answer, he listed you as one of the guests. And I said, "I'm just going to do this interview with him. Not going to say a word. But when it's over, I'm going to call him and tell him I have waited 50 years for this conversation."
And that's how we wound up having lunch together and getting to know each other.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the more important moments of my life, David. Governor, thank you so much for talking with us. Stick around for a second. And
Sure.
I just want to thank you because this is a lot of time to spend with, as I say, an out-of-work announcer. So, thank you, Governor.
This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 8th year of talk like you've never heard it before.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed it, doing it, and I enjoyed just listening to it again. Let me turn on the lights. There we go. I always forget something. That's what happens when you get old. Let's get to our citizen panel, okay? I think that we should do that because it's kind of time to. I know I avoided them for quite a while here, but here they are. Hello, everybody. How are you, Alan and Josh and Vernon?
Good.
How are you?
Good. What a great interview.
And thank you. I thought I had my wife listen to it the other day, and she thought it was very good too. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think the world's missing out. They should hire you to interview people.
Well,
I mean, I know you're very good at this,
yeah.
but maybe in your senior twilight years, you could get on an interview show somewhere.
Well, I mean, interviewing is what I did best. Okay.
Right. Well, you still got it.
Yeah, but nobody's going to hire me, so what the hell,
Okay.
So, yeah. Plus, I get very tired easily now. I don't know why. I find it difficult now to do an hour. And I used to be able to do 3 hours standing on my head.
Welcome to your 60s.
Yeah, welcome to my 80s. Hello, Josh. How you doing this evening?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. And Vernon, how are you?
I'm nursing a broken rib.
What? How did that happen?
I was out walking my dog a week ago and fell on my left side and fractured my number 5 rib.
Now, they don't do anything for that, do they? They just
No,
what-
just rest and
Painkillers.
stay off your feet as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, just lie there, take it easy, enjoy the show.
In fact, I'm sleeping in this chair.
Really?
Yeah, I cannot lay down. It hurts too much.
But really? Oh boy.
Laughing and breathing probably hurt a lot too, huh?
Breathing's not too bad, but yeah, laughing, coughing. I have to grab a pillow or something and hug it real tight when I cough.
I'll bet.
Did Marjorie have a problem with a rib once? I can't remember now, but I know somebody who had a broken rib, and they didn't do anything for it. You just had to be careful with it. Yeah. Yes, Kevin. Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah, you raised your hand for some reason.
No, I just said I broke my rib.
Oh, you broke a rib too. Okay.
And had to go camping.
Don't tell me you broke a rib too, Phil.
No, I was just waving hello.
Oh, okay.
I don't wave.
Oh, so what brings you to our little party tonight, Phil?
Well, I tuned in. I just got off a Zoom call. I was going to watch your interview tomorrow or later tonight, and then I saw that you were down to just a few people, and I figured I would.
Well,
It was in front of the computer anyway. Let me, put my 2 cents in.
It was an hour-long interview.
Yeah. Well, it was an hour-long presentation.
Yes.
On sharks, polar bears. A great photographer named Amos Nachum he's an Israeli, and I was on a whale trip with him about a month ago, and he was doing a presentation to our underwater photography club.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Here's my show and tell.
What
There's a
is
picture of Trump as a statue. Make America Great.
Oh,
And there's the little pin holder in his ass.
Practice with that?
Huh?
You practice when you see Trump in person?
Absolutely, especially now.
I'd
Make
like
America Great.
we got Josh here. I'd like to get Josh's take on the news today. Did it turn out pretty much as you expected it would?
Well, I didn't really hear too much because I had a really super busy day.
Yeah.
But when I got in the car on the way home, was that today that the AG gave a press conference?
No,
today,
that was yesterday.
Okay, so yesterday, and I
or was it
heard
2 days ago.
I
I think it was the AG.
I think that one was yesterday, and
Yesterday.
we heard I heard that, and then today I'm not too sure of much today. I mean, I had the newspaper open a little bit while you were interviewing, so I did see some of the headlines there about the classified documents and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about? Then I assume.
Yeah, they
Sure.
finally. Well, what happened was that the AG said that unless the Trump people complained, they were going to ask the judge to release the warrant and the things that were taken from the property.
Right.
And so they didn't complain, and they were able to do it. But something, what's kind of interesting, we could have had all this information a couple of days ago, because as soon as Trump got the warrant, the search warrant, and he got the list of the property that was taken, he could have released that himself. He's allowed to do that, and he didn't.
But then he couldn't fundraise off of it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
And by the way,
Oh,
all
it's
this
all over.
fundraising, you got to know, folks, if you're giving money to Trump, he's probably spending it on waxed lips and coffee, because he doesn't have to spend it on anything else but himself.
Right.
This is the new way he's earning a living, is by getting people to send him money. So when something like this happens, he gins it up so he'll get money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a little bit behind on it, because of what I had going on today. But I mean, look, if you took documents you're not supposed to have, then that's against law. Then it's against the law. So
Yeah.
they're going to look into it. I mean, other people have been in trouble for those very same things, and Trump himself was very.
Didn't Snowden get in trouble for that?
Well, I mean, that's what I was going to say. He was a very hard talker about people who leak things, but the way that they leak things was by taking documents that they were not allowed to take home with them. So why he didn't, leak anything, or at least nothing that we know of. Okay, but he took a very hard line on things like that, and then he's sort of participating in these activities himself. So, at least peripherally, that's what we know. I mean, look, they say they took documents back that were not supposed to be there. I mean, there's really no excuse for them to be there, especially at this point, because they've been missing and they've been asked for many times. So it's kind of hard to play dumb, at this point. It's not going to have much of a. I mean, if they really have these documents,
this is a guy you don't. This is a guy you don't want to see have confidential materials like this, because he was known when he was president as being a prime leaker of information. I mean, certain people in our government wouldn't give him the full story about stuff because they didn't want him to have all the confidential information he would normally be given, because he was famous for leaking it. He leaked some stuff to the Chinese when they were there.
I find it hard to believe that he wasn't advised not to bring that shit with him either.
That somebody advised him not to, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm sure somebody was standing at the door saying, "I wouldn't bring that with you,"
Well,
Yeah.
somebody
Well,
else
I
had,
mean, I think
somebody
we have
else had to
proof-
print
yeah, I
this
mean,
out.
Well,
Somebody else had to print these documents out. Trump is not smart enough to do it himself. So whoever printed these documents out and gave them to Trump to take to Mar-a-Lago should be hung in a public square.
I don't think these were necessarily things they made copies of. I think these were the originals.
Probably.
Sure they are. I mean,
Yeah, these were the originals.
He
why
claims
not just
to
take the original,
declassify
not
it.
have anything laying around?
Yeah.
But some of it could only be viewed in a skiff.
I said to somebody today at some point, I can't remember who it was, why do you think he wanted to keep this material? And they said to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have a reason. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
there'd be no other reason for him to want to keep this stuff except that he might have something the Russians might.
Yeah,
pay
I
for.
don't know what his reason would be. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I mean, if people support his policy or his idea, not that they're really his, but I'm just saying the ones that he pronounces, his policies or his positions or things like that, so be it. I mean, I have no problem with that. Even if I were to have a disagreement with some of them, I would say, okay, that's a policy, issue. But I mean, look, I don't really know how anyone could find, Trump as a person of integrity or trustworthy.
Well, he's right below you on this panel.
Or any of those things. Well, I mean, I guess if someone does, fine, but I mean, when I would evaluate people, fine. And I don't want to have any sort of arguments about, well, what about this other Democrat who was, I don't care because I don't support those people either. That's what I'm saying. You're not going to get over on me on any of that stuff because I have never supported those people.
They've never had anything of this nature with this severity to happen. Yes, Phil.
Now, I heard two stories on this. One story, which I heard on an MSNBC YouTube thing, was that Trump took these boxes from the White House and brought them to Mar-a-Lago. The other story I heard, and I don't know which one is true, is that these documents were brought to Mar-a-Lago when he was president and still there, and they wanted them back, and he was in negotiations to return. So some people made it sound like Beacons took the stuff from the White House and brought it down to Mar-a-Lago, and other reporting agencies said the stuff was there and he didn't physically take it down there.
What I heard is that he took it when he left. As part of the stuff he moved down to Mar-a-Lago.
Regardless, is it even supposed to be out of the White House?
That's the question.
Yeah, but while he was president, he was using Mar-a-Lago.
It doesn't matter. I don't think he can have it outside the White House if it's classified.
He may have deemed that the stuff wasn't classified.
No, he
doesn't deem it.
He doesn't deem
when
it.
When he was president, he could have unclassified.
No, he couldn't.
Some things he couldn't.
Not. Here's why he couldn't, Phil. Because there are certain things you have to do in order, even if you're the president, to declassify top secret information. And that is, you have to go through several agencies who agree that this stuff can be declassified. You can't just go, I'm president, it's all declassified. That's what he's trying to claim, but it's a claim that will not hold up in court.
Right.
Well, in any case, if it was, then they wouldn't want it back. Then it would be able to be moved to what's called the public record of, the office of the president, which would mean, I believe, in 7 years it would all get released anyway. But in either case, it still doesn't belong to him. The originals belong to the archives under the National Records Act, the NRA, and they belong to the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA. So, I mean, in any case, it doesn't matter. I mean, if that were the exact case, it may reduce the severity of a charge or something like that, but it's still a violation of protocol. But that case is unlikely anyway. I'm just saying.
Well, they were saying that these materials, some of them may have had to do with nuclear secrets, maybe not our own, maybe nuclear secrets we had on Russia or whatever, but they were nuclear in nature. I mean, there's a question here of whether by doing this he was putting this country in grave danger. And that's...
They're going to have to prove that.
Carries around documents like that, that they're not supposed to. It puts us in in danger, just because anytime you violate that protocol, there's a risk. I mean, that's why there is the protocol that there is. And, you know, if you look at it from an intelligence or a military point of view, they don't ever believe or buy into the argument that, yeah, but this one here isn't really as nearly as important as, you know, the secret location of bin Laden paperwork. It wasn't like it was that. Well, the military and the intelligence have said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was the lowest level classified or the most. It's we have to treat it, you know, all the same, because we can never have.
I think the most innocent of all this
problem.
stuff that was there was what the Roger Stone
Pardon.
Yeah, there was a copy of that.
So, you know, I mean, I don't, you know, like I said, we don't have the details, but I mean, you can't have that kind of stuff. I mean, you can't really make excuses for it based on the substance of it. I mean, if it is classified as classified or top secret or whatever the level is, then that's what it is. Even if it, like I said, even if it's a lower level, what may seem like not as that important or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's been deemed as such. I mean, you know, it's there's not really a difference there.
Alan?
They're going to find the signed document where Trump pardoned Adolf Hitler.
Right. No, the Roger Stone pardon supposedly was the least. That was considered personal. I think it wasn't.
The public
deemed
knew
as-
It was
about
still a
it.
presidential document.
It is a presidential document, and those
Okay.
should go into either the National Archives, or the National Archives could lend them out to his library if he ever has one. But he's never talked.
Yeah,
about
but the
that
National
yet.
Archives, when the library is open, then the National Archives will run the archive section of the library.
Well, we have a newly minted Trump fan here in Tony. What did you think about all of this today, Tony? Oh God, I hate to even think of it.
I'm going to
First,
think
has he
about
had
it.
any coffee?
I had a half a cup, actually. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But I'm going to listen. I'm going to make this all play out because I'm very curious to see what the files are. That's number one. I'm not going to jump to conclusions.
You might never find out.
We may not.
Because
see
if
him.
they're top secret, you're not going to
Well,
find out.
Well, I would imagine if they're really that bad, then they're going to have to bring him up on something then,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if they don't bring him up on anything, then I guess it's not that top secret.
Well, we'll see.
And can I ask a stupid question? This is just me thinking off the top of my head.
You do
How long
every
is
show.
Trump
go
at-
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you could speak when I'm done, Al. He's out of office, what, 18 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How come it took him this long to find these boxes now?
No, they've been trying to get them since he left the White House. They've been trying
But
to
they've
get
been
these.
trying to do it with subpoenas, and they have not cooperated.
But here's the question, though. I still
Well, wait a
say.
minute, I just answered your question.
Yeah,
Oh.
you asked the stupid question and it got answered.
Okay, but I didn't speak to you, Alan. So when I speak to you, you can speak. How's that?
Well,
Okay.
he certainly can comment on something.
Yeah, he
else
could,
that-
but I'm trying to speak, and he has to cut me off. That's very rude.
Now you know what it feels like.
Well, you kind of suck the air out of the room a lot, but that's just me.
I like it. That's not a shit sandwich this
No
time.
more
No, it's
coffee
not.
for you.
No, I had a half a cup. I just know an idiot when I see one sometimes.
Oh, jeez. Hey, be nice. Be nice.
I'm being nice, but I
You're
just got to
not- that's
appreciate
why,
that.
That's why I won't let you.
Next, he's going to call you an asshole again.
No,
Yeah.
no, but he interrupts me a lot when I'm trying to get a train of thought out. That's all.
Yes, Vernon.
You can speak.
One thing that was discussed today that not too many people are talking about is that there may be a possibility that documents existed at Mar-a-Lago that were destroyed. And if that's the case, and
See
he's
that?
brought up on those charges, he's facing 20 years per incident.
Wow.
You know what I don't get, Vern? I don't want to interrupt you. I hope that if they find something, I'm all for justice, okay? But what I don't get is he that, I mean, why would you bring home documents that, I can see him burning something.
It isn't the fact that he's stupid, but he
Look at his eyes.
has too much hubris. He thinks
You
he
might
can
be
actually
right.
get away with it. Yes, John
Okay,
Larkin
I give
has
you
his
that.
hand up.
Here's
John?
my theory.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of evidence in that that stuff that he brought. I mean, because we all know the guy is corrupt, you know, and there's so many things that he's hiding, and so some of those documents, some of the documents that aren't even classified might have information for the other cases that are.
Well, what happens is they can go if they go in and they're looking for specific stuff, and in this case, the files that were confidential and top secret and so on that he wouldn't hand over, that they were having a hard time getting him to hand over. But if they find something else in the process, they can.
I mean, I'm all for justice.
They can look into that. So
sure.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And now Phil's going to tell us why we're full of crap.
Well, you know, I heard what was listed in the warrant today, and they said miscellaneous secret, miscellaneous top secret, miscellaneous papers, miscellaneous.
Yeah, well, they no, because they won't tell you exactly what they are, Phil, because that would be giving up top secrets.
I want to know what it is.
So you say,
plus there's an ongoing investigation. But
they're supposed
we'll see all
to
that
list
stuff
what
when
it
they
was.
indict him. Sorry?
No, I think they're supposed to list what it was.
No, they
kept saying was
listed
miscellaneous.
No.
They did take 4 pair of Melania's underwear, but
that was only for sniffing purposes.
Right.
Okay. So
that was so that the dogs, they give it to the dogs to track him when he ran into the forest.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like a soap opera, really. I'm riveted to the TV with this guy. I actually am.
Really?
I'm being honest. He's like, I'm telling you, he's John Gotti, Alex. I don't. You all say he's overcooked.
No, John Gotti did some good.
Unless we get Sammy the Bull to flip him, I don't know. It's got to come from inside, I think.
What could happen in November if the House and the Senate flips? What happens to these investigations?
Oh, these investigations continue. The FBI, you don't get rid of the FBI director or the head of the
Department of Justice is totally different.
Yeah,
it's a different part of government. You can't close that down. What could save Trump is if he goes to jail and a Republican gets elected, and the Republican
he could pardon him. He could pardon him. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
or if he dies.
Yeah, Alan.
Get out of it that way.
So 2 days ago, all the Republicans, senators, and congressmen were yelling that this was an illegal search and all this other stuff. And now that it's come out, they're all quiet.
Yeah, of course.
Because now they're looking at the 2022 election going, poor timing, this can hurt us.
Yeah.
What they're saying, from what I hear, is that this is much about nothing, and that the FBI has a lot of egg on its face, as well as the Department of Justice.
That's not what I heard today. Even from the Republicans. The Republicans today were suspiciously quiet. You didn't hear a word from any of the usual suspects on this deal.
Absolutely.
Marjorie Taylor Greene did something.
Oh,
today.
well, she's not one of the usual suspects. She's just a fucking moron.
The sharpest.
What was she asking for? Was it to get rid of Garland?
Oh yeah, sure.
She wants to defund the Department of Justice.
The FBI, yeah,
like that's going to happen.
Yeah, but if you want to defund the police, she's not for that.
No.
See, but she's for defunding the FBI, which is what? The police.
They're a weaponized arm of the current government, along with the IRS agents that they have hired to come after you.
That's funny. The FBI helped Trump get elected. Why would they go after them?
Because they pulled back and said he wasn't going to prosecute Hillary at the last minute.
Yeah, but the last minute.
He should have kept his mouth shut.
No, he didn't say he wasn't going to prosecute her. He said there was nothing to prosecute her on.
Right.
You mean like the 33,000?
No, forget about it, Phil. He said there was.
Melania's closet.
They had looked at it. They had looked at it and at all the evidence, and they found nothing they could charge her with.
And do you know why they said they buried his ex-wife at his golf course now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They said there's more classified documents in her coffin. There's more classified documents in there.
Dig her up. Dig her up.
Maybe we have to dig her
That
up.
actually would be a smart move.
Well, I think, I think there's a hubris on the part of Trump that made him think, oh, I can just take this stuff. I can just take it.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm the
I'm
president.
sorry.
No, I just.
And by
don't-
the way, up until a few years ago, this wasn't considered a felony. You know who made it a felony?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Huh?
Yep.
Because he thought it would get Hillary.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he made
Yep.
it a felony to
So
you know.
why would he do it if he made it a felony and knew it was a felony?
Because he's an idiot.
Because he has hubris up the yin yang.
Hasn't
It's
he?
called a
Yeah.
narcissistic
There's-
sociopath.
And there's more
those are
evidence-
all the talking points, but we'll see what
There's-
happens.
There's
Look
more
up
evidence.
sociopath.
He-
Look
he's
up
in-
narcissistic sociopath, Phil.
Yeah,
Look it
he
up
can-
on the internet, and every one of those qualities Trump qualifies.
Can't, yeah, you can't.
Phil, there's a point at which maybe you should give up the ghost on this guy and go for some Republican who's honest and who's decent and who would not do this kind of thing.
Well, I do support a Republican that's honest and decent. He's currently the governor of Florida.
Oh, yeah.
DeSantis.
Yeah.
Well, let me put
Now,
it
he's
this
a
way.
small government conservative, right, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
legally
small government
fired-
conservative,
The
but he
trouble-
wants the government to be in all of your business.
Yeah, the trouble with most of these Republicans is that they're not really, what do you call it? They're not really conservatives.
Yeah.
They're really not.
No,
They are
not
some
at all.
other breed, and I don't know what you call them.
Fascists.
Huh?
Fascists.
Well,
Fascists.
fascists. No, but they certainly are not conservatives, because I know conservatives, and they're principled, really patriotic people, and they're not like Trump, who I can't call patriotic, because what did he ever do that was patriotic? He wouldn't even serve his country because he had bone spurs.
Come on, give him a break on that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's gotta go with something. No,
Administration accomplishments.
Oh, yeah.
51 pages.
And
That's what he's done.
Yeah, and who
And
wrote?
those
Who wrote?
50
Wait a minute,
Oh,
hold on a second.
my.
The White House.
Who wrote that document?
The U.S. government, the White House.
The White House.
Get your own show, and you could replay all those in your life.
Yeah.
Loser.
Imagine
51 pages, 50 or blank.
Alex will give you a show for that, Phil.
Yeah.
That's okay. It doesn't. It pays too much, and I can't afford to work for it. I actually don't have time.
Yeah.
You could have Tony host it.
Yeah.
I could be a
He'll cut
sidekick.
everybody off.
Can I sit on the couch like Ed McMahon, Alex, if you hire Phil? Ed McMahon did nothing on that show. I was watching all Johnny.
Well, the only person on this panel that I would actually let do a show is Josh. Josh has the brains to host a show,
Well, thank you to all
Did
the
it
rest
once,
of us.
and
that
I
don't.
thought it was
Well,
a
no.
nice show.
What?
Good night, folks.
Josh did it once, and I thought it was a nice show.
Yeah. He's good.
Yeah, he's very smart. I mean, no, you would not be a good host, Alan.
I don't want to be a host.
Well, then why did you even say thank you very much for it?
No, the problem is
All
not,
the rest of us couldn't be, but
And I'm
wait a
certainly
minute.
not going to let Tony host this show.
No, I was saying, can I be like Ed McMahon for you, Alex? Sit on the couch?
No, you can't even do
I'm not Ed
that.
McMahon. I just want to drink my coffee and get the
hello. The problem is not hosting. The problem is all the prep and the time that it takes, lining up guests, doing all the prep. If you're going to do a show, you got to do it right. And for that hour or two or an hour and a half that you might do a show, there might be 15 hours of prep that has to be done for it.
Yeah.
And, that's a lot of time. And,
Yeah, I put all that time in on this show.
no, you don't. And I know, that you can wake up in the morning and do these things blindfolded because I've done them with you.
Yeah.
And
Liar.
but other people actually need to do the work that you've developed over a lifetime of experience. And you did have producers which did prep. I wasn't one of those kind of producers.
Yeah, Albert used to do prep for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And the quality of the show with the prep especially for someone that doesn't have your experience, is you have to have that. You have to have that prep.
Yeah,
What about if you do a show on carpet?
Imagine that.
That's a pretty short show.
Doing it.
You know, your daughter's here. I won't say that they
You won't make carpet jokes. You
drape.
won't make carpet jokes.
Yeah, no, we don't have to match the drapes.
Yeah.
Why are you so sweaty?
Why are you? What did she say? Why are you so sweaty?
So sweaty. I just washed mommy's.
Oh,
I did
thought she was talking about Phil.
I did something illegal just a minute ago. I washed the car outside.
The water police will be at your doorstep in just.
You know what they're
5 minutes.
thinking of doing? They're thinking of making lawns illegal.
Really?
The amount of water that lawns soak up is way beyond the water that you and I use to drink, to shower, to do everything else.
I can order those phony lawns. The carpet manufacturers actually make a carpet that's a lawn. You can use it for playing golf and and you don't mow it or anything. I have that material available to me, but I don't.
It's called AstroTurf, right?
No, it's sort of like that. Some of it's really long, and like a regular lawn.
Getting hard to hold.
By the way,
Use it as a toupee.
You gotta vacuum it.
Adrian got a kitty.
Yeah.
Look
Wow.
at that.
Nice cat.
Yeah.
I like the stripes. It kind of looks like a raccoon.
That like a serval? Is that
No, that's
I don't know much about cats.
No, it's just Patty.
How old is that cat? It looks like about a year.
Young.
no.
Yeah, 4.5 months.
Oh.
Yeah, kidding.
Where'd you go to a shelter and get it?
Yep.
Good for you.
Cool.
It's always good when people get.
Yeah, Silicon Valley Humane Society.
Brian
Yeah,
and I
that's
have
good.
a friend. Brian and I have a friend who has a couple of servals. Is that what they are?
Yeah.
I think that one day we're going to wake up and see on Facebook that John's been eaten by those
Well,
cats.
no, Marjorie, Ronnie, my ex-wife, had a serval. He used to stay with me occasionally.
Big kitty cats.
They're big.
Aren't they
This one
aggressive?
wasn't that big, but then my other girlfriend, Xanthi, when she lived in Cleveland, had a serval, and he was like, I woke up one morning at her house, and the cat was like standing on my chest. I couldn't breathe, and it was like I was being woken up in the middle of the jungle by a jungle cat. Amazing.
Remember that guy from Indonesia? We had the what were those things called? Remember the guy from Indonesia that used to call in, and he had the thing died in his wall or something.
No, that was a
Bree.
Yeah, Bree, but it was some kind of an animal or something.
Yeah, some weird animal.
Yeah. Well,
civet.
anyway.
It was a civet.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Rats die in people's walls all the time.
Well, we're running over time, and we're not talking about anything in particular. So, I probably should bring this thing to a close. But I thank you all for joining me tonight, in spite of the fact that we got a kind of a late start for this.
Oh. Just one other thing.
It's not like we're going to interfere with Jack's show.
Yeah.
No.
Are there any Jack reports on his?
I talked to him today. He seems to be feeling much better. So we'll just see. We'll have to wait and see. He's still at that same nursing home and wants to slice his wrist that way, but But anyway,
the show from the nursing home.
What?
Can he do the show from the nursing home on an iPad?
He really should. Actually, he could. Anyway, listen. That's it. Okay, thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate it, and thank you to Josh. I appreciate it too. Boy, it is hot in here. It's just been so hot lately. And of course, we're gonna thank Vernon Nunn for sure for being here, and hope your rib gets better. Kevin, thank you so much. Phil, nice having you here. Tony, nice having you here. I think. I haven't figured that one out yet. John Larkin, always nice. And Adrian, so nice of you to bring Brian along to our program, Adrian. We really appreciate it, and allowing him to be on. Yeah.
Oh no, she's messing up the hair.
Messing up the hair. Anyway, everybody give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye at you. Okay?
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, we sure will. Everybody say goodbye. And let me see here. Okay, let me turn my camera here. I forget how to do things now. It's just weird. It's really strange. Ah, well, I'm a little loopy. I get loopy late at night. Somehow I'm gonna learn how to use some stuff to wake me up. The coffee doesn't do it anymore. Anyway, I'll see you on Monday for the what do you call it, the pop-up show, and then we'll be back here next Wednesday at 10:30 Eastern Time. Same time, same station in life. In the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. And thanks to the governor for being here.